Hello friends, so in this section we are going to discuss the spinal reflexes. So as we all know, the each reflex has two components. One of the components is sensory and the other is motor. So both these components are involved in the reflexes, and that is the reason reflexes are also called as sensory motor integration. So half the component of the reflex is sensory and the other half is motor. Therefore reflex is called as sensory motor integration. Now in order to understand reflex, every reflex can be studied in terms of five main components. So, how can every reflex be studied? So, first of all, there will be a stimulus which is going to be sensed by some receptors. So, this is the first component. Then, the information from these receptors is carried to the central nervous system through efferents. So, efferents, these are the second component of the reflex arc, and then the information is going to reach to the center, which can be brain, and in most of the cases the center is spinal cord. So center is the third component, and from center the information for response is going to be carried by efferent neurons. So these efferents are the fourth component, and finally the information is going to reach the target organ where response is produced. So it is the response is the fifth component. Now all these five components stayed together form reflex arc. So this flow of information, so from stimulus to the response, is called as reflex arc. So every reflex can be studied in terms of these five components of reflex arc. Now, if we talk about reflexes, reflexes can be divided into three major groups. So, reflexes can either be monosynaptic reflexes. So, we'll discuss these in detail and how they are monosynaptic in a few moments. Reflexes can also be disynaptic reflexes, and reflexes can be polysynaptic reflexes. So, as it is evident from the name itself, monosynaptic reflexes have only one synapse in the reflex arc. In the whole reflex arc, there will be only one synapse. So the classical example of a monosynaptic reflex is the stretch reflex. So disynaptic reflexes, they have two synapses in the whole reflex arc, and the classical example is the inverse stretch reflex. So we'll discuss all these reflexes in detail. Uh, Polysynaptic reflexes, they have more than two synapses in the reflex arc, and the classical examples are the withdrawal reflex and the mass reflex. Now we'll start our discussion with the for monosynaptic reflexes, and in the monosynaptic reflex the most important reflex that we are going to discuss is the stretch reflex. So before going to these reflexes, we should have some basic knowledge about some about the section of spinal cord and some important neurons. So this is section of a spinal cord, and the H-like structure in the center is called the gray matter of spinal cord. Now this is the dorsal horn of the spinal cord, and this is the dorsal root ganglion, and this is the ventral horn of the spinal cord. So this is called as the dorsal root ganglion. We should always remember that dorsal horn of the spinal cord is sensory in nature. It means whenever the information comes from a receptor, it always comes from the dorsal part of this gray matter, and the efferents they come out from the ventral part of this gray matter of spinal cord. So the ventral horn is motor, while as dorsal horn is sensory. Now, most of the efferent nerves which bring sensory information, they are actually peripheral processes of the cell which is present in the dorsal root ganglion. So it has two processes. One is the peripheral process of this cell. This cell is called as the dorsal root ganglion cell. So peripheral processes bring information, and the central process, they take the information towards the spinal cord. So these are the central processes. Dorsal root ganglion cell. Now, in the motor part of the spinal cord, various types of neurons emerge from this. So the main type of neuron that we are going to discuss is it's called as alpha motor neuron. Now this neuron emerges from the ventral horn of the spinal cord, and it innervates the extrafusal fibers in the muscles and causes contraction of muscles. So this is alpha motor neuron. Now another type of motor neuron can emerge, which is called as the gamma motor neuron. This gamma motor neuron is responsible for contraction of intrafusal fibers. So we'll discuss them in detail in the muscle spindle. So it goes to the muscle spindle. These are the gamma motor neurons. So this is something basic that we should know about the spinal cord before studying reflexes in detail. So this is alpha motor neuron and the gamma motor neuron. This is the dorsal root ganglion cell. Now in term, these sensory neurons can be type 1a, type 1b, or type 2 neurons. So these neurons will be discussed in detail in the section of nerve physiology. Now let us start with the basic topic, that is the monosynaptic reflexes. So monosynaptic reflexes, as we know, they have only one synapse in the reflex arc, and the classical example of this reflex is the stretch reflex. So what do we mean by stretch reflex? Stretch reflex simply means stretch induced contraction of the muscle. It means whenever we stretch a muscle, there is the reflex contraction of the same muscle. So stretch induced contraction of the muscle is called as stretch reflex. So how does this happen? For example, okay, first we stretch a muscle, then the muscle is going to contract. This is the stretch reflex in the simplest words. See, the stimulus in this case is the stretch and the response is contraction of the muscle. Now, how does this occur? Let me take example of a basic type of reflex which is called as a knee jerk reflex. So we all have done this practically in the human experiment. So we use a patellar hammer, and that patellar hammer is used to tap the tendon of a muscle called as quadriceps femoris. So here this while we tap the tendon of quadriceps femoris, this causes stretching of this muscle to some extent, and this type of stretching is called as passive stretching because the person does not stretch the muscle himself, it is the other person who is examining the person, and this passive stretching will eventually cause contraction of the quadriceps femoris, which will cause knee jerk. So this is an example of a stretch reflex, that is knee jerk reflex. Now, if we talk about the stretch reflex in terms of 5 components of the reflex arc, so the first component, which is the receptor part, as we all know, second component is the efferent part, third is the center, fourth is the efferent, and fifth component is the target organ or the muscle. So in this case, the receptor part is, in this case, it is a receptor which is going to sense the stretch. It is going to sense the change in length of muscle. This receptor is called as muscle spindle. So muscle spindle is the receptor in this case, and from muscle spindle, the efferents are carried with the help of neurons. Now these neurons are type 1A and type 2 neurons. Obviously, these neurons will innervate the muscle spindle. Information reaches the center, which is spinal cord, and efferents are the alpha motor neurons, which will cause contraction of the muscle. That's in this case quadriceps femoris. So this is the basic knee jerk reflex in terms of 5 components of the reflex arc. Now, in order to have a better understanding of this reflex, we should first of all have some knowledge about the muscle spindle. So muscle spindle is basically a receptor which is present in the belly of the muscle. So if this is a muscle, this is the tendon of the muscle, and in the center is the belly of the muscle. Now this belly of muscle, it consists of 2 types of fibers. The fibers which are actually responsible for contraction of muscle, that means actin myosin, they are known as extrafusal fibers. And other than these, there are some other fibers which are called as intrafusal fibers. These intrafusal fibers, they are present in the belly of the muscle. They do not perform the function of contraction of muscle. However, they act as receptor, and these intrafusal fibers they are present in the belly of muscle, and these intrafusal fibers, they form the muscle spindle. So muscle spindle and intrafusal fibers can be used synonymously. These terms can be used synonymously as well because they are one and the same thing. Okay, so this is a muscle spindle or intrafusal fiber, and these are extrafusal fibers which cause contraction of the muscle as a whole. Now, how does this receptor work? That's this muscle spindle. So this muscle spindle is basically a receptor for sensing change in length of the muscle. Now these intrafusal fibers, there are almost 3 to 12 intrafusal fibers in each muscle spindle. Now let us try to understand this muscle spindle in detail. So it is present in the belly of the muscle. Now if we just draw a separate diagram of muscle spindle, so this muscle spindle can be divided into 2 parts. Okay, it has a central part and a peripheral part. Okay, now this part is the central part, and the adjacent parts, they are the peripheral parts. Now the importance of central part is that the actual receptor part which can sense the stretch of muscle is present in the center part. So it is the actual receptor part, and peripheral, so receptor part, it is present in the central part of the muscle spindle. That means if it is the receptor part, the efferents which are going to carry information towards the central nervous system, they innervate only the central part of the muscle spindle. So efferents go to the central part, okay, the sensory efferents. So now the peripheral part, they contain contractile proteins, and that means the stimulation of these peripheral parts by the motor neurons, that will cause contraction of this part. Now what is the significance of that contraction, that we are going to discuss later. It does not cause muscle contraction, it just causes contraction of muscle spindle. So peripheral part, the efferents in this case, they are not sensory, they are motor in nature. So these are gamma motor neurons. So gamma motor neurons innervate these peripheral parts of muscle spindle and cause contraction of these contractile proteins. Now if this is the muscle spindle again, so this is the belly of the muscle. So inside this belly, this is muscle spindle, and these are extrafusal fibers. Normally what is going to happen, the central part of this muscle spindle which receives efferents, so this central part is going to sense the stretch on the muscle, and it's going to send this information through 1A and type 2 fibers. So we'll discuss these fibers in the efferent in the nerve supply of muscle spindle in a few moments. So this information will be carried to the spinal cord through these fibers, and from spinal cord the alpha motor neurons are going to come and innervate the extrafusal fibers. As a result, there will be contraction of extrafusal fibers which will cause muscle contraction. Now gamma motor neurons, they innervate the peripheral parts of muscle spindle. So the efferents are alpha motor neurons. So these were the alpha motor neurons which cause contraction of muscle. The gamma motor neurons in this case will stimulate the peripheral parts, and stimulation of these receptors will cause contraction of peripheral parts which will result in stretching of the central receptor part. So once receptor part is stretched, so it undergoes stimulation, and again the same thing occurs. It causes stimulation, and again finally there will be contraction of the extrafusal fibers. So muscle contraction can actually occur by two methods. We can either stimulate gamma motor neurons, and that will cause a stretch in the muscle spindle, which will indirectly cause contraction of muscle by causing stretch reflex, or we can directly stimulate alpha motor neurons in the spinal cord, that will directly stimulate extrafusal fibers and cause contraction of the muscle. So one is known as the direct muscle contraction and other is indirect muscle contraction. Normally when a muscle contraction has to occur, the pathway that it follows is both the pathways. So it undergoes contraction by direct pathway as well as by indirect pathway. So there will be stimulation of alpha motor neurons as well as gamma motor neurons during a muscle contraction. Therefore this process is called as alpha gamma coordination. Alpha gamma coordination, it occurs during a normal muscle contraction. So this was alpha motor neuron and here it was gamma motor neuron, and stimulation of both these neurons will cause contraction of the muscle. One will be direct contraction and other will be indirect contraction. Now if we take a more detailed look of muscle spindle, the center part of muscle spindle which contains the receptor, it contains two types of fibers. So intrafusal fibers can be of two types. So in one type of fibers, the nuclei are present in a bag-like structure, and in another type of fiber, nuclei are arranged in a chain-like fashion. So the fiber which contains a bag-like structure is called as the nuclear bag fiber. So this fiber is called as nuclear bag fiber. It contains nuclei in a bag-like structure, and the other which contains nuclei arranged in a chain-like fashion, that fiber is called as nuclear chain fiber. So there are two types of fibers, nuclear bag fiber and nuclear chain fiber. Now both these fibers are present in the muscle spindle. They perform different functions which we are going to see later on. So both these fibers, they are going to receive efferents. So nuclear bag fiber as well as chain fiber are going to receive efferents. Our efferents are different in this case. There are two types of efferents of muscle spindle. One is the primary efferent and other is the secondary efferent. Now the primary efferent of the muscle spindle, these are type 1A fibers, and the secondary efferents are type 2 fibers. So type 1A fibers, which are the primary efferents, they innervate both nuclear bag fibers as well as nuclear chain fibers. So they innervate both these fibers and they wind around the central part and form spiral structures. So they are known as annulospiral endings. So if this is the central part which contains both nuclear bag and chain fibers, this is type 1A fiber, which is the efferent fiber. It forms annulospiral endings around the central part. Type 1A fiber or annulospiral endings. Now the secondary efferents, these are type 2 fibers, and these fibers form flower spray endings, and they innervate only nuclear chain fibers. Okay, they innervate only nuclear chain fibers and they form flower spray endings. So if this is the type 2 neuron, so this forms flower spray endings at the end. So these are known as flower spray endings and they innervate only nuclear chain fibers. Now information from both 1A and 2 fibers goes to the spinal cord through the dorsal horn. Okay. Now the peripheral part contains contractile proteins and receives gamma motor neurons. So gamma motor neurons are received by the peripheral part of the muscle spindle, which causes stretching of the central part. Now these gamma motor neurons are received by both nuclear bag fibers and nuclear chain fibers. However, they are given different names in each. In case of nuclear bag fibers, these gamma motor neurons, they are called as plate endings in nuclear bag fibers, and they are called as trail endings in nuclear chain fibers. The function of both these in both these fibers is same. Function of gamma motor neuron is same in both these fibers. So this is the central part of the muscle spindle. So this is the whole nerve supply of muscle spindle. Now all the efferents, they take information to the spinal cord. So if this is a nuclear bag fiber is responsible for dynamic response as compared to nuclear chain. Nuclear chain fiber is responsible for static response. So what do we mean by dynamic response? It means nuclear bag fiber, it fires by sensing dynamic muscle change. That means during the actual activity, when the muscle is actually contracting, when there is dynamic change in the length of the muscle, at that time nuclear bag fibers are responsible for firing through mainly 1A fibers, and this response is called as dynamic response. Nuclear chain fibers, they are responsible for static response. It means if the muscle is contracted, if the muscle is stretched and the stretched length of the muscle is maintained. So if we maintain the stretched length of the muscle and then stop, we are not changing now we are not changing the length of the muscle, we just stretch the muscle and then stop. Now at this point there will be firing from the nuclear chain fibers, and this firing will also cause contraction of muscle. This is called as static response. So this is static response and dynamic response. So the function of nuclear bag fibers and nuclear chain fibers is different. Now let us try to understand the stretch reflex in detail. So these are the extrafusal fibers, and in the center are the intrafusal fibers or the muscle spindle. So this is the muscle spindle. Now whenever there is stretch of the muscle, whether it is a physical stretch or due to stimulation of due to gamma discharge, the information from the efferents will go to the spinal cord. So this is section of spinal cord. This is the dorsal horn, this is the dorsal root ganglion, and this is the ventral horn of spinal cord, which is motor. So the efferents, that means type 1A and type 2 fibers from the receptor part of muscle spindle, they are going to carry this information through type 1 and 1A and type 2 fibers, and it will finally go from the dorsal horn. So these are the peripheral process of dorsal root ganglion cell. So they will end up in the spinal cord. Now in the spinal cord, they will synapse with the motor neurons in the ventral part. So these motor neurons in this case are alpha motor neurons. So they will cause stimulation of alpha motor neurons. So this is an alpha motor neuron, and this motor neuron innervates the extrafusal fibers of muscles. So whenever there is stimulation of this alpha motor neuron, that is going to cause stimulation of extrafusal fibers, so that will result in the muscle contraction. So as a result of stretch, efferents from the muscle spindle reach the spinal cord, and efferents through alpha motor neurons, they cause contraction of the muscle. This is called as the stretch reflex. So if there can be a stimulation of gamma neurons, so that can also cause stretch in this, and again there will be muscle contraction. So again it's the stretch reflex. Now, so if in terms of components of reflex arc, this is the first component type, these are the second component, efferent neurons, spinal cord is the third component, efferent motor neurons are fourth component, and the muscle itself is the fifth component. So these are 5 components of reflex arc, and this is the discussion of stretch reflex in terms of these components. Now as we can see, there is only one synapse in this, so it is called as the monosynaptic reflex. There is only one synapse in the spinal cord, so monosynaptic reflex. Due to this reason, stretch reflex is also called as the simplest reflex, because there is only one synapse. Now let us discuss another type of reflex, which is called as a disynaptic reflex. So as the name says, it contains 2 synapses in the reflex arc, and they are mainly present in the spinal cord. Both are present in the spinal cord. So inverse stretch reflex. So normally whenever we stretch a muscle, that results in contraction of the muscle. So this is what we studied till now in the stretch reflex. So this is the basic stretch reflex. Stretch causes contraction of the muscle. However, if we go on stretching the muscle, then when it is stretched beyond a further point, then it's called as overstretch, and overstretching of muscle is dangerous. It can damage the muscle. So as a protective response, there will be relaxation of the muscle. So overstretching leads to relaxation of muscle. This is called as inverse stretch reflex. So as it looks like opposite of the stretch reflex, therefore it's called inverse stretch reflex. Now it is a preventive reflex, because it prevents the overstretching, the damage which can be caused due to overstretching, the damage to the muscle. So it's a preventive reflex. So as a result of overstretch, there will be relaxation of muscle. It is called as inverse stretch reflex. Now let us discuss inverse stretch reflex in terms of the components of reflex arc. So there are 5 main components: component 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Now component 1 is the receptor part. So in this case, the receptor which is responsible for sensing the overstretch, this receptor is called as the Golgi tendon organ. Now this is a very important receptor, which is actually a tension receptor in the muscle. It can sense when the tension increases during overstretch. Now type 2, these are the efferents, which are actually type 1b neurons, and type 3 is the spinal cord, which is center. Type 4 is again the same alpha motor neuron, and and the part component 5 is the muscle. However, in this case muscle undergoes relaxation and alpha motor neuron undergoes inhibition. Now if this is again the muscle, so in the center is the belly of the muscle, this is the muscle spindle present in the belly of the muscle. At the peripheral part of the muscle, that means near the tendon of the muscle, certain muscle fibers, almost 3 to 20 muscle fibers, they result in formation of Golgi tendon organ. Okay, 3 to 20 muscle fibers form Golgi tendon organ. So this is Golgi tendon organ and this is muscle spindle. Muscle spindle, they are responsible for sensing length changes, so they are receptors for length changes, whereas Golgi tendon organ is the receptor for tension changes. So if tension is going to rise, which can damage the muscle, then Golgi tendon organ will fire and cause relaxation of the same muscle. So this is for tension changes. Now the fibers which innervate Golgi tendon organ, these are type 1b fibers. So type 1b fibers are the efferents of the Golgi tendon organ, and they go finally to the spinal cord via the alpha motor neurons will be inhibited. So we'll discuss this in detail. So again, this is a muscle. This is Golgi tendon organ present at the peripheral part of the muscle. And these are extrafusal fibers of the muscle which contract and relax, okay, actin and myosin. Now, if this is section of a spinal cord, so this is the ventral horn, the dorsal horn, and this is the dorsal horn, dorsal root ganglion, and this is the ventral horn of spinal cord. Now the efferents, whenever there will be let's start from the beginning. Okay, now there is overstretching of a muscle. It means the tension in the muscle has increased significantly, so there will be stimulation of Golgi tendon organ, and as a result the impulses will be carried from type 1b fibers, and they will, so these all these fibers are basically peripheral process of dorsal root ganglion cell, and the central processes carry information towards the spinal cord. Now in the spinal cord, they are going to synapse with a neuron which is actually an inhibitory neuron. So these are 1b cells, they are stimulatory. They are going to stimulate a neuron which is actually an inhibitory neuron, this one neuron shown in red color, and this inhibitory neuron is going to inhibit the alpha motor neuron which stimulates extrafusal fibers. So alpha motor neuron causes contraction of extrafusal fibers. However, in this case, this inhibitory neuron will inhibit the alpha motor neuron. So inhibition of alpha motor neuron will result in relaxation of extrafusal fibers, therefore muscle will relax. So as a result of overstretching, the muscle relaxes because there is inhibition of alpha motor neurons. So this is called as inverse stretch reflex. Now if we take a closer look at this, this is the spinal cord. So this is the dorsal root ganglion. Again, this is the ventral horn. So this is the dorsal root ganglion cell, and it brings efferents from the central process, the spinal cord, and this inhibitory cell causes inhibition of alpha motor neuron. So this is the type 1b fiber, and this inhibitory cell which inhibits alpha motor neuron is called as Renshaw cell. So this type of inhibition is called as Renshaw cell inhibition. So Renshaw cell inhibition occurs in case of inverse stretch reflex, and it inhibits the alpha motor neuron. So inhibition of alpha motor neuron results in relaxation of the muscle. Now the inhibitory neurotransmitter that Renshaw cell uses is glycine. So Golgi tendon organ results in relaxation of muscle in response to overstretch, and this occurs to prevent damage to the muscle. As we can see, there are two synapses in this case. So this is one synapse and this is another synapse. So because of this reason, this reflex is called as disynaptic reflex, because it contains two reflexes in the reflex arc. Now we are going to discuss the last part of the spinal reflexes. These are the polysynaptic reflexes. So polysynaptic reflex, as the name says, they contain more than two synapses in the whole reflex arc. So there are more than two synapses present. Now we'll understand these polysynaptic reflexes with the help of two basic examples. So the first example is in case of a pinprick. So if due to some reason there's a pinprick in our foot, say in our right foot, now as a reflex response to this pinprick, there is going to be the information first will be carried to the spinal cord through efferents, and it will cause activation of many segments in the spinal cord at the same time, and the net result will be there will be flexion of the right lower limb, and there will be extension of the left lower limb. Now flexion of right lower limb will occur in order to take the right lower limb away from the point where the pin is placed, and there will be extension of left lower limb for balance and support. So flexion of right lower limb, there will be stimulation of all the flexors and inhibition of extensors of right lower limb, and in case of left lower limb, there will be stimulation of extensors and inhibition of flexors. Now, as we can see, a large number of neurons are involved in this case, so large number of synapses will be formed, so it is a polysynaptic reflex. Now, this reflex occurs in order to take the foot away from the pin, so it's called as withdrawal reflex. The name given to this reflex is withdrawal reflex, and it is an example of polysynaptic reflex. Now, another reflex, it's called as mass reflex. So this reflex can be seen in cases of paraplegics. So paraplegics, in case of paraplegia, there is impairment of sensory and motor function in the lower limb especially. So that's called as paraplegia. So in paraplegics, when we give a mild painful stimuli, so mild painful stimuli given to the lower limb especially, it will cause stimulation of large number of segments in the spinal cord, and sometimes all the segments in the spinal cord. So there will be outflow from all the segments of spinal cord, and it will cause actions like increase in sweating, increased systolic blood pressure, which can go to more than 200 millimeters of mercury, and there will be contraction of most of the muscles, smooth muscles, so which will result in bowel evacuation and urine evacuation. So this reflex is called as a mass reflex. Mass reflex is example of polysynaptic reflex. So this was all about spinal reflexes. If you guys like this video, then do comment, share and subscribe, and thank you for watching.